it was said that I should make a series of images about this. But hey, why stop at images when you can record yourself talking to absolutely nobody? Isn't that what people do these days? I think so. Anyhow, late age Marignon, a very nice nation, is it not? You get silly human troops that are expensive and hard to produce due to their high resource costs. And they're just fucking humans. They die in droves. And your expansion is famously bad. Oh, what's a shame, huh? Yeah, it's such a shame. However, what if we take a nice look-see at what certain mages of the nation have to offer? Indeed, if you take a close look, you might notice that there's a 50% chance of getting Astral 1 on this any coastal fort dude. And more than just that, we get this guy who comes with air, water, and astral at all times. That's pretty nice. The 40 leadership is also pretty convenient, as you will see later. The random is also alright, but the important part is that he has these 3 paths at all times. And specifically, the random we would really like to have is the water one. Why is that, you may ask? Well, see, when you look at your other mages, they don't really have anything that stands out as particularly useful early on. Indeed, none of your mages have paths that are useful early on. I mean, besides maybe summoning a whole bunch of fucking imps. Which is surprisingly effective, but that requires the blood slaves and all that. That's time. Time we don't fucking have. Time is money, as you may know. And so, why do I allude to this guy with his air, water, and even astral? Well, the reason is, there's this funny spell in evocations. I think they call it Freezing Mist. Inconspicuous, is it not? Wow! 1 whole cold damage and a bunch of fatigue damage. That doesn't sound very impressive, mister. Well, see. That's what we'd thought too. Until it turns out that clouds apply their effects thrice per turn, and they last for a while, as you might be able to tell from this duration. So it doesn't do 1 whole armor negating damage. No, it does 1 base damage plus the random roll versus 0 protection plus a random roll. And it's actually weight, so with loaded die, so the damaging side is usually 2 or 3 points higher than the protection side, but that's just the detail right there. And then you add up 3 of those rolls every turn while they stand there in this cloud. And they will stand there in this cloud, because your units will be there in that cloud. And they're not gonna die, because you were smart and had the foresight to put on cold resistance on them. Now, what's also worth noticing is that this fatigue damage part, yeah, it's not that impressive, no. But since attack dies get a bit of a boost compared to the protective dice, that means that this is 10 damage versus 0 protection. Yes. Oh, it's 14 times 3. I can tell you that. It's quite a high number. And so what does that mean? It means that in Evocation 3, we don't get a fireball that misses all the time and doesn't really do much. Wow, dude, it does a whole 10 armor negating fatigue damage in a reasonable area of effect. Wow, wow. Ooh, don't blow me away, mister. And then we have Freezing Mist, which does like 40 fatigue damage per turn and at least 10 fucking HP damage per turn for, I don't know, 4 turns? Something like that, and it's a cloud that just instantly pops onto the battlefield, so you don't fucking miss it real hard. By being a really smart mage that fucking flings a fireball across the battlefield where you expected the enemy to be, but they were actually standing still, so you just throw a fireball at your own dudes. Oops! That doesn't happen with instant fucking placement spells. Nuh-uh, no sir. It just fucking appears where it's supposed to be. Of course, there's still some deviation because it's not perfect precision, but it's good enough. Trust me. Clouds are pretty good in this game. I can attest to that. So then, what's so unusual here? Well, we have a guaranteed Astral Mage, and I can spoil to you that LA Marignon starts with a Grand Citadel on their cap. That's pretty nice. It also means that we can make... Sorry. God damn it. We can make 3 of these guys every 2 turns. It's gonna cost us, sure. But it'll be worth it very, very soon. Now, you may also notice they have quite a few RP. But we're not rushing Evocations 3, believe it or not, because I don't know, this is really shocking, but there's another spell we are quite interested in. It's called Luck, which is a pretty good effect. Area of Effect 1 Luck that you just throw on some dudes. It's pretty good. Surprisingly good even. There's also this thing, but, you know, Twist Fate is less strong. It's useful, believe me. If you cast it on some dudes and some heavy cavalry clash into them, well, their lances just disappear from the Twist Fate effect. Hee ha, hope you didn't want them. So, what am I going to allude to here? Where am I going with all of this shit? Well, first of all, let's fucking look at what I mean by luck is a pretty good effect. You may not know. What does fluffing people with luck mean? It means giving them 9 fucking points of astral. Oh, yeah, 9 points of astral bless with 2 fucking luck scales. Except we don't actually have to pay for that bless because we don't fucking need that garbage. No, we want some good old RP for casting our spells. Or rather, for getting our spells. Casting is easier in high magic. Sure, that's true. It's 30% less fatigue in Magic 3. Wow, that's a big impact. It's okay. It's actually fairly important as a Blood Nation to have Magic 1 because here's a shocker for you. Their communion spells, yeah, they cost 100 fatigue. What does that mean? It means that when a mage casts it, a Blood 1 mage, like this guy, for example, he casts it, he gets 3 plus 100 fatigue. Well, that knocks him out. Ouch, cold. And so he wastes a fucking turn just sitting there, doing nothing. Snooping on little... never mind. Let's not go there. He's just snoozing it off and having funny dreams. Yes, that's what he's doing. So yes, instead of casting a spell, like, I don't know, the spell that removes 100 fatigue from him, yeah, actually removes all fatigue, but let's not get into that. Instead of casting a useful spell like that, he's fucking snoozing on the job. And it gets even worse if you take Drain, because that adds 10% per level of Drain to the fucking spell cost, which means that instead of 100, it would cost 110. So now he's 113 fatigue from one cast of fucking Sabbath Master. And so now he's snoozing for 3 turns instead of 1 turn. What a little bitch. But... yes, excuse me. I'm a little drunk. What a shame. Now... besides all those tangents about magic, spells, and what have you, what's to note here is that we are definitely going to not rush Evocations 3 first, because evocations are good and all that, but it's not necessary at first to cast those spells. Cold resistance is not a particularly popular bless in most places. However, we can use that to our advantage. And here I'm just taking some funny little scales to make sure that we get ourselves a nice head start in expansion, because when we only have one province, it's kinda hard to produce units with high resource costs without just fucking cranking the shit out of production. And so we do. Now, the sacreds here are not very expensive in resources, so those won't be a problem. But since I mentioned that these guys have a 50% chance to get Astral, and that we're gonna rush Alteration 3, that means that we're gonna be definitely utilizing that throughout the early-ish to, I don't know, whenever the fuck it's not useful anymore, part of the game. And so, I'd like to take a nice little look-see at the troop selection we have. I know this is very disjointed, but you're just gonna have to make do with it. Right, so we have this pikeman. What's exceptional about him? His weapon is length 5. That's neat if you're against repel thugs or something. But his attack is quite low, so he's not going to be the repel thug in question. And another thing that's pretty cool about him is that a pike is a two-handed weapon. So if you slap some Strength of Giants on this guy, which I will remind is in Enchantment 3, right there, what we're gonna get is that this guy will get 4 more strength, which brings him not to 21 damage, but to 22. Because he hits 12 strength and things round down here. So it's 25%, and 1/4 of 12 is 4. So he will have 5 plus 14, 19 plus 4, 23 piercing damage. Which is quite handy indeed sometimes. But besides just poking hard, he's not very exceptional. He's just okay. Not garbage. Kinda easy to produce. You could do worse. Speaking of worse, there's this guy. Now, there's something deceptive about me pointing it out that way, and that's that you might look at him and go like, wow, look at those stats, they are garbage. This guy can't do anything. And you would be correct. If you sent them against a bunch of those guys, they would get slaughtered. But fortunately, you're not sending those guys after elite infantry. No, you're just sending them at a bunch of indies. And what's remarkable about these guys is that, look at the resource cost. It's 10. The closest thing to that is this crossbowman, who is likewise 10 resources. But this guy costs 10 gold, while this guy costs 8. And this guy hits for 16 damage, while this guy hits for 22. And this guy does more damage than this guy, not only because he hits harder, but also because blunt is a trash weapon. Type. Because piercing damage reduces protection by 20% and rounds it down. And slash gives bonus damage after you get through protection. So that means that this guy hits real fucking hard. The attack skill might put you off. I mean, this guy has 10 attack skill. That's respectable. Well, this guy only has 7. Ugh, so trash. But I will remind, this guy is a human. There are 3 of those in a square, and in these, they are not known for their good stats. So the point here is, you could technically consider these guys, and they would actually be effective against, I don't know, some tribe enemies, barbarians perhaps. Well, these guys would be much more effective against anything armored. However, I will remind that this is LA, and that means that most indies are in fact packing some decent armor, so hitting hard is definitely appreciated. And what's also funny is that you may notice that heavy armor has defense penalties, and since there are 3 guys per square and we have a lot of them, that means that their defense will get harassed down, and then they hit hard, and then they kill them, and then you win. Pretty neat, huh? Yeah. Now, onwards, we have this guy. What's he good for? Not much, I guess. His weapon isn't long enough that we can say he can harass, repel thugs. No, he can't do that. He just hits hard. A little bit harder than this guy, while having 2 less attack skill. That's not good, dude. That's no good. So we look at this guy, and what's about this guy? There's not much about this guy. He just has a nice weapon, good armor, and he's solid. But the problem is, for this strategy I'm describing, where you're using astral mages to throw on some real sweet stuff on some dudes to make them real good and shit. Yeah, the problem here is that they are both coastal, and only 50% of chart makers actually get the astral random you want. The rest can just sit in the lab and research like crazy. Which is actually not that bad with Magic 3. Fun fact, it's a good scale. So, the point with here being that, yes, if we had Astral Mages out the ass, this guy would be very nice, because he has decent protection. We even have some mages that could technically form a communion. Oh yeah. And then cast some good old Legions of Steel on them, which raises their protection to a reasonable level. In fact, it makes them match the protection of these guys for 5 less resources. But here's the problem. Since we are so restricted in how many mages we have that are actually good at buffing, it's not a big deal that these guys are hard to produce, because they are significantly better than these guys. They have 2 more attack skill. They hit harder by 3 whole damage. That's a lot, actually. And they have 1 more defense skill despite wearing heavier armor, which also means that if we cast Legions of Steel on them, they'll actually have a pretty respectable protection score. And so what's the point here? The point is, instead of making these guys from our regular forts, we would end up making these guys and throwing Legions of Steel, Strength of Giants, Luck, and probably also Body Ethereal on them, depending on if we are facing enemies with magic weapons, such as, I don't know, Late Age Atlantis or something. In that case, we don't throw Ethereal on them. However, if we are facing those guys, we can just throw Twist Fate on them instead. It also does a great job. And so, alright, about the Pretender. Well, I did say that it's quite early research that we're looking for. We want Alteration 3 for the luck, and we want Freezing Mist, and we want it quickly. To do that, we can use a Great Sage who has a lot of fucking research potential just natively from his plus 15 RP. Don't underestimate that on an awake. And he also gives every mage in your fucking cap +1 to their RP. And I will remind you that when we have a Citadel as our cap, and we're recruiting 2 of these guys, no, we're recruiting 3 of these guys every 2 turns. And they have 13 RP, which is 16 with Magic 3, and 17 due to us having a Great Sage right there. That's a lot of RP. Yes, that's the point. And this is not some sort of, oh, I'm a make an awake researcher and go fucking down the fucking research tree and get fog warriors and then destroy everyone. Ooh. No, that's not what we're doing, because level 7 research, dude, you're never gonna get there in any sort of reasonable time. However, level 3 research, that's easily done. And so, the reason I'm taking a lot of fucking cold here is because if I don't do that, you may notice I have to throw off some scales here. And, well, that doesn't seem to affect our income very negatively. I can assure you that income is not a big problem when we're making cheap-ass mages. It's LA. And while we're making fairly expensive infantry, if I'm to be honest. We're not making a lot of them, and we're gonna be buffing them to shit. And so income doesn't really matter, nor are we spending a fuckload of money in our cap, because these guys are honestly pretty cheap. And how do we cast Freezing Mist with these guys? We'll see. The thing about communions is, when you have 2 slaves, you get +1 to all your paths. So, to cast Freezing Mist, what a 3 Air1 spell we would need to get there somehow. There's a reason I said that the water random is the random we desire here, but it's not strictly necessary, due to the fact that we get a bunch of pearls every turn, and you might know this, but you can cast a spell 1 level above what your path is if you spend a gem doing so. And of course, if you don't spend more than your fucking total spell level is, I'm not the one to tell you that, Wildrung. I'ma tell you that much. The point here is that if you bring water gems, you can spam this spell even on the dudes that didn't roll a water random. And you will have the water randoms sitting around, because those won't be the ones we take into battle, as they are important. But to get enough mages casting Freezing Mist, we could employ those. And since we're casting Freezing Mist, we want some dudes to stand there and not die to it. And so what we're gonna do is that we're gonna put some good old cold resistance on our decent sacreds. They're nothing incredible. They're not worth making a bless around. And we're not making a bless around them. No, we're just making them serve a greater purpose. They're nothing spectacular, but in practice they will be blessed like so, effectively. Except, you know, we're not paying all those design points to do that. No, fuck that. We're just gonna throw luck on them. With our fucking mages that will then do some work. Anyhow, I think it's high time I sort of demonstrated it. This shit, don't you agree? So let's go ahead and do that. Yes, indeed. I'm gonna play on the default settings, because it doesn't really matter. Unless, of course, you play a game with, like, cranked indie strength, but who would ever do that? Although I would recommend upping the side frequency, because gems are fun. So then, we start out our game after this lengthy explanation on what the hell we're gonna do. And so, what the fuck do we do now? Well, first of all, I'm pretty lucky here, and we can see that this is a good province to start on, because it has a bunch of resources, and as I've already told you, we kinda want resources, don't we? But we can't actually afford to make a bunch of troops. Or can we? Eh? Ah yes, we don't have enough resources to really make any decent quantity of troops. And that's how LA Marignon has this reputation for expanding like shit, because oh no, my dudes, they don't have shields, and there's crossbows everywhere. Oh my god! But here's a fun fact. I mean, Do you remember how I talked about these guys and how they hit hard and their low attack honestly doesn't matter? Well, surprise, surprise, you can make not 4, not 6, and actually it's just 5, because we will be recruiting 2 of these guys. So you can make not 4 or 5 troops, or 4 whole sacreds. Wowee! No, you can make a whole bunch of these guys, and that's exactly what you're gonna be doing. So we recruit 10 of these guys. That's not a whole lot, no. But we don't need a whole lot, because we have a whole lot of troops here already. And you may not remember these guys that I talked about with a respectable attack score. Well, the fun fact is they're your crossbow dudes. Except I didn't talk about their crossbows. Can you guess why that is? Anyhow, onwards with the turn. Now, what I could do here is send this guy in and ping this province in advance so as to tell, is this a province that's gonna kill my dudes or is it not? I'm just gonna be a little greedy here and not do that. Instead, I'm just gonna trust him that he's gonna be just fine and that I don't need to know how many dudes are there. So to recap, the very first turn, oh, and your pretender with 42 RP, yeah, I think we're gonna research. Oh, and added bonus of Magic 3 is, with random research, you have a good chance of starting with Thaumaturgy 1, which gives you access to the Communion Master spells that you so require. And if you don't play with random research, then I can tell you for a fact that you would be at all zeros and require a whole 9 RP to do Thaumaturgy level 1 and then rush Alteration 3. But fortunately, since this is not all spread research, oh my, some people play with that setting. I don't like that setting, but I'm not here to judge people. I'm pretty indifferent on those things. It's like, whatever, dude. So yes, as I mentioned quite a while ago now, because I'm doing this very, very, very quickly, we're gonna be rushing Alteration 3 right off the bat. And then we're gonna rush Evocation 3, because that's also a good thing to have. I mean, Freezing Mist, good spell. If you haven't been convinced yet, then you will probably be convinced eventually. So, to properly recap the very, very first turn, we make a profit out of our little captain here, because he will be useful. And what for, I shall explain on the next turn. Oh, you better prepare. We send our trusty little scout boy to scout provinces. Actually, you know what? I don't care, dude. Just ping the province for me. Do it. I'll watch. And then we set our pretender to research whatever we want to research, which I just passed over. Oh, and we recruit 2 of these guys, because we're gonna need as many as we can get. And for the rest of the money, we purchase city guards. A whole 10 of them, and we can actually make 10 of them, unlike pretty much any other guy. Of course, we could also make 8 crossbow dudes, but I believe I've already said that they're not actually much better than City Guard. So, City Guard it is. Let the next turn begin. Oh my. Good thing I pinged this province, eh? That's a pretty tough province. Although there's a good chance I can demonstrate the power of city guards on these very people. Because you may notice they have a bunch of protection on decent shields, and they have a whopping 6 defense. That's not a lot, but if they get their shield balance, it doesn't really fucking matter. That's gonna be 37 protection. Good luck hitting through that with these guys. So, how do you expand? Well. I see our Dominion has been very kind and spread out like crazy. This is a time when we can just sit back and look at our options. And this is a throne. Nobody cares about thrones turn fucking 2. Don't bother. It's usually not worth the effort. This province is shockingly easy. However, that's one disadvantage of these guys, is that if you slap darkness penalties on top of their already bad attack, they're probably gonna lose. So we can't really take on this province with this particular starting unit setup. However, we will keep that in mind for later. This province doesn't look very good. It doesn't look very inviting. In fact, it looks like this province, except even worse. Because it has more population and thus is likely to have more than this amount of troops. Because this province is not very large. So, between heavy cavalry and heavy infantry, heavy cavalry and heavy infantry, but a bit less than this province, we have this province with militia and heavy infantry. I think the choice is clear. And lucky go me, this province actually has decent resources. Hooray. So, that means that we can go ahead and chomp into it. But wait, what's that? Let's ping this province too. I want to see how little troops there are in it. I'm sure it won't be a whole fuckload. And now, we have a little dilemma. We could start producing sacreds right here and right now. It might even be a decent idea. But I have this sneaking suspicion. Excuse me. That our city guard will probably die on this little suicide mission. So let's take a look-see. We can either make 5 of our sacreds, or we can make 3 and do 5. Fuck it, dude. Actually, fuck it. We just spam city guard at the moment. Show no quarter. And here's a little surprise. Who could have saw that coming? 17 RP. So that means that turn 2 we're already researching with 59 RP per turn. It's gonna climb very, very quickly. And so to recap turn 2, we look at our fucking options and see that there's honestly only one good province to hit out of our choices here. And that's the easy province. And so we're taking our city guard and making a mighty stack of them. But having a bunch of troops in one big fat stack, that's not very useful, so I'm gonna split them up a little bit. Something like this. And since we are facing heavy infantry and militia, that means that the militia are faster than the heavy infantry. And so if we place our troops further back, well, the militia will walk forward and get slaughtered by our troops, thus making it more likely that our guys will survive the trip, as the Indies route faster. And by the way, the reason I'm making a setup like this is because this blob will walk forward while this blob will sort of go around wherever the hell this blob ends up congregating. You could say it's covering the flanks, but that would be very generous to say when you're operating with blobs instead of lines. So yes, we're just gonna hit this province, and hopefully we'll make it out. Wait a moment. I see an opportunity here. This guy has 10 leadership, which means that we can use this guy as the guy that brings in these dudes to our next place. So then, I see. Thus we won't ping this province, because honestly, we won't really need it. And thus, we're still researching, we're attacking the most obvious target, and recruiting a bunch of city guard, because I have this sneaking suspicion that a lot of them will die horribly. Or at least we will face attrition, as they call it. Huh. Yeah. Is that all? Yeah, it probably is. Anywho, next turn. Yes. Our forces were beaten by the defending forces of independence. Well, 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 what do we have here? Here's what we call a freak accident. Our dudes decided to be little shitbags and rout. Despite the fact that we're not actually losing. Well, well. What a surprise. Our shitty troops... Oh, shit. Luckily, we still kept a fair bit. And so, what do we do now? Well, we do the only thing we can do. And that is, we go again. Might as well start producing sacreds now, because honestly, they're better than these guys, and I honestly just want to take a province right now, and since that whole plan, actually no, I might as well just keep him there now. But the positive is we're pretty much skyrocketing our research. That's a good thing, and you will see why that is. You could consider taking some mercenaries at this very point, but as you might be able to tell, you're sort of tight on gold. And whether you should take mercenaries in this scenario, and here I can actually tell you that it would be a good idea, technically, to do so. But at the same time, we desperately need our sacreds for what we are planning to do to other players who would probably spawn rather close to us. And since we're rushing research like crazy, we want to do it fast and clean. And to do that fast and clean, we would need sacreds. to pull off our strategy. But the scenario where I would say that you would actually take the secrets instead of... No, the mercenaries, sorry, not the secrets. The scenario where you would take the mercenaries is if this province, or rather, if we didn't have good resource provinces next to us, and so we had to take a bunch of these provinces that don't have many resources, instead of just grabbing one and then, whoops, we have quite a bunch of resources now. If you had to take more than one province to augment your resource production, then yeah, you would actually take the mercenaries here to help you out. But since I just need to take this one fucking province, then I'm just gonna smack into it. Also, did those militia really not run off the battlefield? Come on now. I doubt that. Let's rewatch the battle and see if that's really true. Actually, I'm gonna speed it up a little. God damn it. Yeah, it's actually quite a lot of militia that are just conveniently right there. So you know what? I'm just gonna play it safe here and say, you know what? Let's not be complete fools. And do something useful. Anyhow, I sped this program up a little, and so now let's see how our army fails to kill some trivial indies once again. I would not be surprised, but you never know. So then, let's see how we do. Oh, and since this guy is no longer needed, I'm just gonna ping him now. Research is going well. We're taking some mercenaries, because I'm not taking any chances, dude. The militia didn't run off. Those damn bastards. Anyhow, next turn. That's how it's supposed to go. But as you may know, in Dominions, there's this good chance that things just spontaneously don't go your way. Fortunately, I recruited a bunch of city guards so that, in case something really stupid happens, we would make it out of there. And so with Zerg tactics, we eventually succeed in taking this province. So I did not have to buy the mercenaries, but I still did for safety's sake. Now, what I can see here is that this province has more heavy infantry who are pretty nasty, but don't do as much damage as these dudes. So, what that means is that technically this is not a much harder province than this one. And this force is spent. It's no longer very useful. However, these guys, they are very nice. And I'm pretty fortunate to have gotten such good mercenaries this early. So, what do we do? Well, wow, we can even make lines with them. That's incredible. Attack, just closest, honestly. I can even do this. It's really nice. I'm checking the combat speed, and those guys are indeed faster than the other guys. So I'm just gonna make a little meat shield here and send them in here. And these guys, they are likewise going to serve as little meat shields for the Bandar, who are quite nice. In fact, I shall do this and just send everything in there. As you can see, we're still recruiting mages. However, as I mentioned, this is a high resource province, which means that I didn't have to take many provinces to really crank my resources up, and now I can recruit my 5 sacreds and still have resources left over. I still don't have enough resources to start splurging out on nice troops and all that. However, as you can tell, we are very, very quickly approaching Alteration 3. So, despite that, it's actually a good time to recruit some good infantry. Because we won't need a lot to take provinces. You'll see. Now, let's press Y and set up our little army. First of all, I would recommend that you don't expose your flanks. I don't quite remember where the hell the cavalry are going, so I'm just gonna intercept whatever's coming from the flank by setting those to attack rear. These guys can be in front and attack closest. They are all faster than the Bandar, so they will take the hits first. I'll spread them out a little bit more. And there you go. That should do a terrific job at just clearing through this trash. And one thing that I would note is that we don't really need gold right now. As you can see, I'm recruiting 2 mages, or I'm recruiting all my mages, and the troops here are not particularly expensive. So I can splurge out on making sure that the unrest here falls down by setting up 10 PD in this province. It'll help a little bit. And what's also nice is that we have a prophet here, so that we might just get a candle, an extra candle here while he's in this province, but I'm not quite sure what the timing on that is. I think it's only after battles, so we probably didn't get very lucky there, because there was already Dominion here, and there's no extra Dominion. However, since this force is spent, one particular thing you can do, and I'm not gonna do it here, because I'll let you figure out the timings and specifics of this particular approach to the game on your own. I'm just here to show you that it is in fact possible to do this shit. But what you can do is that instead of going in here and honestly not really contributing very much, you could make him preach here on a high resource place. And what that will do is that it will help with unrest on its own already, because unrest reduction is based on how much positive dominion you have in a province if you own it. And also, higher dominion means that your scales spread faster into a province, and as you might tell, production 3 makes quite the difference in resource quantity, and we want resources. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just gonna send him in there, because I'm an ass. So, to recap, we're approaching Alteration 3, and we will have it the turn after this one. So, because of that, we can start recruiting non-sacred infantry, and since we have secured a province and a reasonable amount of resources, we can now bum rush sacreds every turn. And we're taking another province because I bought mercenaries in the case that my expansion here would fail, but it did not. And so instead of walking back here, or just preaching here, because I don't really need more than this province, since, as I allude to, you don't actually need that many dudes to expand, but I'll show that. Because I'm not playing super greedy here, I'm gonna take this province now. And yes, next turn. Boom. Our shitty dudes all die horribly, but as you might see, heavy cavalry have 9 kills. We lost 9 shitty dudes. I wonder who they killed. And what did you know? It's actually a good thing that I sent those guys over there, because these guys could have potentially been extremely cheeky and started going around and just sniping my commanders. However, there were dudes on attack rear here, and they just so happened to intercept them, and now they're not gonna turn around. And what else happened is that our little baits that we sent on attack closest, all of these dudes, they got lanced to death, as you can tell by the high damage numbers here. So that part of the plan went wonderfully. Those guys are on a suicide mission. Nobody cares about those guys. And the Bandar, as you would expect, whacked the floor with everything, because it's actually a surprisingly good mercenary. It's kind of like shipwreckers in that regard, just those guys don't go underwater. So yes, we got this province, and as I said, I don't actually need this guy anymore, and I might as well start preaching here, because this is an even better province than this one. And since it is so good, I might as well crank the PD on it to make sure that it gets even better, even quicker. These dudes can honestly, yes, I can just do that. Should be good enough. Actually, no, I'm gonna be cheeky here and say that we didn't get some good mercenaries, and we took this province, but the mercenaries got BTFO'd afterwards, and so they're useless now. So then, I don't really have troops here, but we're getting Alteration 3 next turn. That's a big one. And we have a bunch of resources because we got a province. Nice, nice. That's very cool. So I'm just gonna pretend those guys don't exist. Yeah, whatever. I keep hitting caps lock. That's very nice. Anyhow. You know what? This is a coastal province, and I would like to build on coasts. Actually, this is a coastal province too, and I'd probably want to build there too, because it's not a super high resource province, and in this case I have another high resource province, and another high resource province, and another high resource province next to my capital. And the important cap-only dudes that I'm making are not actually high resource. So yes, I will, in fact, just build a fort here, eventually. I won't be able to start it right now. I could recruit a scout there. If this was multiplayer, you would recruit a scout there and send him off. But do I look like I honestly care about such things? No. So I'm not gonna recruit a scout there, and I'm gonna be a real dipshit and say that, oops, would you look at our gold? We don't have enough gold for another mage. That's no good. And this is a situation that might crop up, but I'm gold limited right now, and that means that I'd like to get some more troops out since I have Alteration 3. Is that all? Or do I want to get more? Actually, yeah, I think I'll just make a bunch of those guys. Next turn, I'll get some Royal Guards. So I'm sending this guy off to make a funny little fort here eventually, and researching the shit out of everything. So I'm pretending this guy doesn't exist, because this is just luck. That's not good. That's not consistent. So that's why you practice single player, so that you can make consistent strategies that don't rely on getting lucky. Even though me recruiting mercenaries was not luck. Although you could get very unlucky and there's just no mercenaries at all. But usually it's not gonna be some incredible mercenary that just fucking wipes the floor with provinces. I could just send them out, conquer shit, but I'm not going to. Because this is not some sort of, that's very lucky, isn't it? No. This is not very hard. You don't expand very well because you don't need to do so. So I'm recruiting a bunch of dudes, hitting Alteration 3. Everything is very nice. And thus, we just say, yeah, that's cool. How about we look at the next turn? Indeed. Boom. This province has high dominion, our scales are there. Yep. So we go to the next province. We don't have nearly enough income yet, but we got all 3, and that means that we have all these guys. All of these dudes. These guys rolled water, they are important. So we are not sending them out. However, the astral randoms here, we don't need those. And it's actually quite convenient that they rolled astral, because that makes our job a little easier. Now, technically, I would not advise you to use your sacreds for expansion, because you're gonna need every single one of them against players. However, because I bounced off this province once, I'm sort of behind a little, so you can, in such a situation, realistically get away with using your sacreds for something useful. Furthermore, how do we take provinces? Well, here's where the fun starts. I don't need the air random ones either, so I'm gonna send him in here for the purpose that there's quite a few guys here. And I would much prefer that they don't go out into battle unbuffed. Thus, we do this. We place some dudes right next to our mages. We set them to buff things. Yes, that's nice. However, the troops are only on hold and attack, so they're gonna hold 2 turns, and then they're gonna run off and die. What can we do to buff them further in such a situation? The answer, as it turned out, was horribly obvious. I couldn't see the forest for all the trees in the way. How do we make sure our mages buff the troops moving forward? Well, you move the mage further forward, and then you cast more spells, since they are now in range. Wow. Insane. And since the enemies are always moving forward because it's indies and or PD, this also counts for PD rating, they're gonna be moving forward while you're holding. And then the mages and the troops start moving forward. The mages are usually a little bit faster than the troops, so they're gonna move past the troops in most cases. This is dangerous against cavalry, because, well, if you move your mages forward and they're in front of the troops and cavalry has been moving forward all this time, they're probably gonna tank the hits, and you don't want that. In such a case, you would bring some extra troops right in front so that the cavalry gets distracted for a turn or two. If it's PD, you don't need many troops. 3 or 4 would usually do. So like, say we do this. And they're going forward there to intercept the cavalry. Because getting more than like 3 heavy cavalry in the province takes over, I think, over 12 PD, so I think that's where you get the 3rd horse, so it's really expensive. So normally you're not gonna need many troops to do that with PD. Against indies you can face quite a bit of cavalry, and that's where you're just gonna have to trick your way through it. What you can also do in such a case against indie cavalry is that you cast another spell on the mage himself, attack, and then move into range and advance and cast. But honestly, it really depends on what we're doing. Anyhow, right now I'd like to count the amount of squares we have of troops, because this is an AoE buff. And it's important to know how many squares you have, so that you know how many buffs do I need to buff up all the troops. Since it's humans and they're size 3, no size 2 and fit 3 in a square, it's 12 divided by 3, which is 4 squares of dudes. So we need 4 casts of luck, but... always butts in this game, huh? Yeah. There's a lot of butts in this game. Not the nice looking ones either. Just a lot of conditionals. The thing is, mages casting buffs like this tend to prefer squares of mages. So the very first cast of luck in this instance will go on the mage square. And that's where it's important that you do not split the mages, because in doing so you won't waste 1 cast of luck. You will waste 2, because there are now 2 squares of mages. So you stack them up together in this instance, and so we get 1 cast of luck for the mages and 3 casts of luck on the troops. That means that what I have currently set up thus far is conveniently exactly enough to buff up all these dudes with luck. 5 casts total, since 4 for the troops and 1 for the mage square. That means that I can now cast other buffs on the troops, and by the way, you can hit X to repeat the last fucking spell you're casting. And I would recommend advance and cast, because it's surprisingly useful. Might just cast something useful instead of standing in place and casting things at a range. Occasionally you even get a fucking buff thrown in there without you scripting it. That's very handy. So, what's also to note is that these guys are actually quite capable of taking that province. And you know what? I'm gonna trade one of these guys for another one of those, because I'm going into darkness which means that I will lose 3 points of attack going in there, and these guys don't have as good of an attack as these guys. You'd think they would, given that they're your sacreds, but no. LA Marignon sacreds are nothing special. They're good at patrolling, I will give them that, but defensively, they're nothing special. Offensively, they're nothing special. They are nothing special. And that's why I'm simply using them to hold a cold resistance buff, to stand in freezing mist without dying, while casting luck on them so that they also don't die to troops. And so, after this lengthy explanation, pardon the caps lock once more, we're going in here, we're casting buffs on these dudes, and presumably they will wreck shit up. And now we need to do the same for this province, because I'm just assuming, I know, very presumptuous of me, that these guys don't exist. Naturally, I would have already sent them there, just taken this province by storm, but I'm just being a dipshit playing like this, okay? As said, you could use more than one mage, and in fact that would probably be good in certain instances, such as right now. Would have actually been good if I kept this guy here, so that in case I lose a commander here, because some dipshits just went around and sniped him, I could have placed him somewhere on the battlefield. And as long as you have commanders on the battlefield, not even necessarily ones with leadership, fun fact, your troops won't auto-route. But I'm just gonna play it a little risky here, risky frisky, and send out 2 dudes here, even though I don't technically need to send out that many to buff just 9 dudes. I just feel like playing it a little safe. The same rules apply here, where you cast buffs. Wait a moment, this is a province with cavalry. Tricksy, eh? Yes. Ah, yes. That's a good point here. I rushed Alteration 3, which means that I can in fact cast Mist Form. And since I'm gonna be a dipshit here, I'm just gonna play it real safe here. And cast luck on all 3 squares of these guys, plus the one with the mages. Then I'm gonna cast Mist Form with a gem, just like we're planning to cast Freezing Mist with water gems. And the way we would do that is either through having 1 or 2 dudes do it without gems, or alchemizing our pearls into water gems and giving them to, say, guys like this. And then they would cast the spell just fine, that amount of times, as many gems as we give them. So yes, we're casting Mist Form. But then we're attacking. And the reason I'm casting Mist Form is that just in case the ponies sneak around and start attacking these dudes, they're gonna have a little bit more defense against that. And since we already hit everyone with luck, I'm just gonna presume that we need Twist Fate next. Alright, so this is 8 greatsword dudes who are nothing special. Actually, you could consider them bad, but they're just honestly okay. They're not bad infantry. Like, they're better than these guys. Significantly better. they don't have shields, but here's the fun one for you. Did you know that if you don't have shields, you can cast Body Ethereal and non-magical weapons won't apply 75% of the time? Haha, that's basically air shield against crossbows, and we can cast that shit on our shieldless dudes. So the fact that these guys don't have shields, or better yet, these guys don't have shields, that doesn't really matter anymore. Fun one, huh? And in fact, what we research after Evocation 3 sorta depends on what you see, because it might actually be worthwhile to pop into Blood, recruit a few Blood mages, grab some slaves from, I don't know, this province probably, and then spam summon imps to drown someone in imps alongside your locked infantry and your sacreds. But see, the reason you would drown someone in imps alongside buffed infantry is because presumably the only opponent that you can face is like LA Atlantis, who is immune to your freezing mist shenanigans. And they don't respect Ethereal either, but I can tell you they respect imps in their backline. And they also respect locked elite infantry, which those guys are. They're pretty good. They're not incredible, but they're pretty good. And with luck, they are quite a force, I can tell you that. And Twist Fate still applies against enemies that ignore Ethereal. So, we're playing it safe on this one and buffing dudes up. These guys may not seem very good, and there's a fair quantity of enemies here, but I'm just gonna trust that you're gonna do a pretty good job. Would it make sense for me to use the sacreds for that job instead? You know what? I've reconsidered that. I will, in fact, use my sacreds not in the cave, but in this other place. There. Thus I have completely flipped it around. Wait a moment. No, that's bad. Sorry, I'm being very indecisive right now. The reason I would use these guys is because if you look at the heavy infantry who make up most of that province, they do just a bit less damage than these guys have protection, which is actually a big deal, as opposed to these guys, which have less protection than those guys do damage. So yes, it makes sense that I would send these guys in against the heavy infantry, and I presume, hopefully, we will see those guys perform admirably, despite them being thoroughly mediocre. Here's to good luck. Yes, also we're sending our prophet to preach in this province, because this province has a lot of scales now. Should I do that? Might as well. I'm not starved for gold right now, or am I? But yes, I shall continue making elite infantry, and you know what? Fuck that province. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna make more of these guys, because they're fun. So then, this guy is waiting to make a fort, which he will eventually start, because we're gonna expand pretty well, pretty soon. Hopefully. And now, let's see how it goes. A lot of build-up for catastrophic failure. That would be very Dominions. Also, I'd like to mention that we just reached a major power spike on turn 6. Our research took a hit because I'm playing it safe and bringing 2 mages to buff up dudes. However, hopefully it pays off and I don't lose very many troops doing so. Here's to good luck. Bam. Let's see how it went. Yeah, see? That's why I didn't want to send the City Guard in here, despite the fact that Pale ones are actually extremely easy indies. They have 8 defense, essentially, because the bucklers don't actually prevent them from taking damage. They don't hit very well, and they don't do a fuckload of damage. Now, they do enough damage for them to hurt our troops, and they do hit well enough that the troops with the defense penalties can in fact easily get hit by them. But the reason I didn't send the City Guard in is because they had 7 attack base. -3 is 4 attack against 8 defense. Yeah, that's not gonna go very well. And they also have no armor and crappy defense, so they would just get slaughtered by these dudes. However, instead now I'm sending in these dudes with 10 attack and 8 defense that matches the attack of the Pale ones. And not only that, but I'm buffing those dudes with some real good shit. And now there's only one square of dudes that's not blessed. It's currently split up, actually. That's not good, but it congregates. And so now they're casting more spells. And there's that luck, and one cast a Twist Fate, as promised. The luck missed one guy, because he decided to split off from his mate. And there we have the prioritization of mage squares, as I described previously. The first square he casts Twist Fate on is the mage square. Unfortunately, the mages are in the same square and did not split off like that dude. And so he hits both of the mages and will now proceed to cast Twist Fate on all these dudes. In the meantime, as you can see, our troops engaged in the battle. And what has happened is that this guy, he just fucking died. This guy took some damage. And this guy was about to die, but what's that? Luck negated the otherwise fatal damage. It's starting to work. Boom. Oh man, that's a good square to hit with that. Those guys, those are the ones you'd like to carry here. And so what's going to happen, presumably, is that our little pale ones will struggle to actually kill our troops. And as you can see, that's exactly what has happened. Despite the fact that I'd like to say that most of these probably have a bit of the good old brush up against death. This guy almost would die twice. This guy also died twice, but didn't. One of these might also have died, but whatever. This guy unfortunately died immediately, as did this one. Luck does not guarantee that you don't die, but it can work pretty well. And it does in fact work pretty well. Because what has happened here is that we lost 2 sacreds. That's a bit sad, but whatever. But we took the province. Now, what about the other battle? That's the one with the heavy cavalry. In fact, we have 9 dudes here, and we have 6 heavy cavalry. Normally you'd say, this is some awful odds you're doing here. Yes, it would be awful odds, but fortunately we have good old point fluffing at our disposal. And everyone gets locked up here. So now, with some good luck, and by the way, this is why I'm having them cast Mistform, because there is a possibility that what happens here is that they go forward, but then they just decide to, fuck those guys, we're just gonna go around and attack the commanders. In such a case, it would be awful if they only had luck, because it would take a turn for these guys to make it back to them after they've been moving forward, and the cavalry just decided, fuck that, we're killing the commanders instead. But I'm casting Mistform here, and they have luck, so the likelihood that these guys will both flank around those, kill them, while my troops do not make it in time to kill them first, while they're killing those guys, the chances of that actually happening are quite slim now. Incredibly slim. It can happen with some extremely bad luck where Mistform just immediately pops and they take a hoof to the fucking head and die horribly because luck didn't save them. But that's some that's some rolling, that's the winning lottery kind of thing that occasionally happens in this game. Except your prize is shit. I'd like to take a refund. Anyhow, let's see how this goes. Right, one guy just gets fucking smashed. However, their lances should be mostly spent now. In fact, one funny thing is, you'll probably see something funny here. No, not in this guy either, but some of these guys might actually have taken lances and luck saved them from dying. Seems like nobody did that, unfortunately. Yeah, this guy could have died and luck could have saved him, but that didn't happen. Aha, there it is. Who could have thought? It's the last one I look at. There's the thing I would have hoped for to see more of, which is that a guy gets hit by a lance, he takes massive damage and dies, but wait, luck prevents death, haha. So what happens there is that the heavy cavalry clearly hit the guy, and now the lance is spent, because despite the fact that he didn't take real damage, the lance still hit and did damage, and thus is spent. Anyhow, he dies horribly. Who cares? But now they don't have lances, and they hit moderately hard. But these guys have decent protection, as you might remember, so that's not a big problem. So what's probably going to happen is that they're gonna cleave through them. Oh, and we're starting to fluff with Twist Fate, which is good. Oh, and conveniently enough, this guy is actually tanking for my dudes. That's pretty useful. Seems like we're losing this fight. However, that's not too surprising considering just how many dudes there were and how few we sent here. However, this was not the very valuable province, so I'd also just like to point out that note how long these guys lasted. It's a very, very, very long time to last, considering the odds were so stacked up against them. So we didn't take this province, but that's not a problem. And what's more, we can actually immediately take this province. Did I lose that mage? Yep, I lost that mage. Well, no biggie. What's important is that I can now demonstrate doing the same thing as previously with just one mage right behind them and cast spells. Oh, how nice. We get an extra dude here. You can hold tab to see afflictions. And it's nothing serious. Okay. Here I would like to recruit a commander so I can eventually start a fort here. Because this is a coastal province, and as you may remember, the chart makers that we're planning to recruit, they are overwater coastal fort recruits, which means that we can recruit them in forts all around the coast, but not inland. That's important to keep in mind, because I've often forgotten in single player tests that, oh, right, I'm supposed to make coastal forts, not land forts. Duh. I sort of zone out sometimes and make a fort here in single player tests, which I don't run that often these days. But that's not the province I should take right now. Not because I don't really need that province. Or do I? You know? There's no reason for me to take this province. Especially since it probably has a disease side, so fuck that shit. However, this province, despite it being not coastal, is a province right next to a province that is coastal. So, it also is revealed by my dominion that, technically speaking, this is the highest income province of them all. And thus, there's no reason for me not to take it. And so I shall. Ugh. Now, as you might see, we're starting to get into gold trouble, and that's why it's actually not so much of a biggie that I don't take a coastal province, because honestly, man, I'm not even starting this fort yet. Why do I need another one? No reason besides greed. I'm just gonna slap another dude in there, and we have 2 water dudes, 3 water dudes. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 4 water dudes. This would be an excellent game for this strategy. But we also have a spare air dudes, and I'm just gonna actually no, my prophet can start a fort here in this instance, and this guy can lead those dudes around. So if I take those dudes, I can't actually take a province despite my best efforts, so oof. Those are not good troops anymore. Utterly useless, so whatever, dude. I'll just bring those into, I don't know, this province or something. So, in such a case, yeah, I'm just not gonna do much with this guy. As I'll use those guys as reinforcements to the guys going elsewhere, likely into this province. Right, whatever. So, it's turn 7, actually. It doesn't matter if I do anything with this guy, because I'm hitting the fucking breakpoint anyhow. So in this instance I could in fact just bring this guy over here, and I probably should, but not for the reason you might think. I would probably bring him there to site search, because you may have heard that one thing about you should use water gems to do water things. Yeah, you might as well search with a mage if you can afford to do so, and I can in this case. And if you're facing someone that does not bypass ethereal, then obviously the next thing you would research after Evocation 3 is ethereal. Anyhow, we're sending in dudes to kill those guys, we're sending in dudes to kill those guys, we're moving troops around, blah 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 blah. Now, should I recruit this many dudes? The answer is no. I don't need to expand harder right now, because those expansion parties are actually surprisingly sturdy. Like, these guys probably aren't gonna die horribly, and I need sacreds. If I didn't have to desperation expand and I wasn't tight on gold due to being behind in expansion, I probably would walk these sacreds back, because you shouldn't really waste them, since you might notice I only have 4 here, and I'm recruiting 5, and I'm already hitting freezing mist. Dude, I can start pushing turn 8. So it's a fine balancing act, but anyhow, it's time for the next turn. And here we die horribly because I'm a fucking retard and didn't see that it has heavy cavalry. And what do you know, the scenario I described where you walk your mages forward, and yeah, guess what, that's exactly what happened. Don't do that. Anyhow, these guys excuse me. Okay. As I mentioned, I'm kinda drunk right now, and I'm not sure if it comes through on fucking recording, but I don't really give a big shit about single player tests, but pay attention, please. Don't screw up like this. It's an early rush strategy like this is a very fucking finicky thing, and fucking up like that, like I just did there, yeah, that costs you big time. Because that's a lot of income you could have had this turn, but you don't, because you're a fucking dipshit and don't pay attention. So, pay attention, heavy cavalry, do not fucking walk forward like a dummy dumb. No. Bad. Bad monkey, bad. Well, this is another scenario you're likely to run into, which is that you can recruit a bunch of these guys, but they are quite expensive in recruitment points, and if you're tight on expansion, what you can do is just fucking spam out these guys. There you go. Doing that would secure the rest of my expansion forces. Like, I don't need more than that. And so, since these guys are graciously here, I'm just gonna go back there and... How many dudes were there? No. 14. Yeah, I'm not gonna go there. Not yet, anyhow. So, in such an instance, I would do what I wanted to do with these guys and smack into this province. And This guy has done his dominion work, so now you can go here. In fact, what he should do is go here, but whatever. God damn it, search. And yes. Now. You know, it's not really worth searching with these guys right now, but it would be worth to bring an extra mage here to do just this shit. Hmm. 4 squares and 5 casts. Well, you know what that means. Yup. Boom, boom. And this guy can stand someplace silly and pretend that he exists. What doesn't exist? So you put your PD here. Go into provinces, don't be a dipshit. Doesn't look close enough. Pay attention, do your homework, and expand like fucking crazy. 30 lizard warriors, and I'm taking it with these guys. I mean, that's some good shit right there. Boom. Look at that. It's like nothing happened, except if you tried that without luck, you'd see something very different happen. Yes. 7 guys, you know? Funny thing is, you could probably take this province with that many dudes. Can you take that many guys with these dudes? The answer is maybe. Maybe. It depends on how much you cost things. In fact, let's just try it out, in case it wasn't clear. This is about as much as you need to do. So then, let's see. I'm just doing random shit at this point. I'm done demonstrating this. I'm just gonna do weird and wacky shit. Like make forts there, make forts there, and there. Well, who cares, dude? Luck, 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 luck. Yup, 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 yup. Split dudes up, place them at the back of the battlefield, same square, blah blah. Yep, yep, gotcha, gotcha. Boom, boom. Fucking cast spells, who the fuck is, dude? Oh. Actually, you know what? Attack closest, attack closest. No. Attack rear, attack rear. Let's catch some fucking flankers, shall we now? Yep, yep. You deposit fucking secrets, yada yada. You get the fucking drill, dude. Make mages, fuck bitches, take land, destroy players. Those things, man. Blah blah. Let's see if we actually take that throne. I'm actually curious. You know how I said that those guys could probably take that province? Well, yes, they did just that. 7 guys with a bit of fluffing. No problemo. I mean, we're all almost dead, but Almost dead does not mean dead when you have luck. Ha ha ha. And what about the throne? If I had to guess, this probably won't go down very well, but you never know, dude. This is probably the limit. It's probably not gonna go down very well. Anyhow, don't do this. Do this. Not this. I believe I have demonstrated enough of this shit. I'm tired now. My voice is giving out, and I'm sure you're tired of me too. Have a nice one.